Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Anthony.
And we are back again for another action-packed show for you guys today. And yesterday on the program, you weren't here, Anthony. Unfortunately, you actually...
I felt like 6 kinds of hell. It was...
I remember you texted me in the morning. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this show by myself today. But, yeah, I did discuss Aaron Hernandez.
Mm-hmm.
I did discuss my thoughts, my reaction, my initial reaction, because we do the show in the morning, so, it happened very early yesterday.
Right.
We're going to talk about that a little bit more again because we have a lot more information, especially after I went off the air. We're going to discuss the Patriots White House visits, and we're going to pretty much discuss our reaction from Gronkowski interrupting Sean Spicer and Donald Trump's shout out to Danny Amendola. So we're going to discuss that. We got news this morning of Colin Kaepernick being listed as one of the top influential people in Time magazine. We're going to discuss Marshawn Lynch as well. It looks like that the Raiders are reportedly walking away from a potential deal involving Beast Mode. And, of course, we got the news yesterday officially of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers being the team featured on Hard Knocks this year. So we have a lot to discuss, Anthony, so we're going to get right into it. So yesterday we had the news of Aaron Hernandez pretty much committing suicide.
Right.
That's what the news was. A lot of people that were close to Aaron Hernandez said that, there's no way that he would do this. There's no way that he would do this, especially leaving a 4-year-old daughter
right
like that. And, that's just something that I kind of thought about when I was done with the show, when I was reading more information. And, a lot from people that were close to Aaron Hernandez, a lot of people that were close to him, they just didn't think this was right. A lot of people, there's a lot of speculation, a lot of conspiracies that this may be an inside job.
Right.
So it looks like that Aaron Hernandez's lawyer, Jose Baez, is going to pretty much launch an investigation of Aaron Hernandez's death. There is going to be an autopsy as well coming on later this week, but I did discuss that Aaron Hernandez, he was serving the life sentence for the murder of Odin Lloyd in 2013. He was just acquitted, actually, from a double murder charge that was supposed to be the cause of the 2013 murder. So a lot of people thought he was going to use that acquittal as a appeal to his life sentence. A lot of people thought that was going to happen, and that's another reason why people don't think that he was going to commit suicide. He wouldn't take his own life like that. But, overall, Aaron Hernandez was someone that was just always – it looks like he just couldn't never get away from the bad crowd. Remember, he grew up in Connecticut, not too far away from Boston, so he couldn't escape that past. But, there was a lot to discuss about this Aaron Hernandez story, and, it comes to an end. The whole story from beginning – middle and end is very tragic, and there's a lot to take away. I think this is something that we're going to discuss from 5 to 10 years from now because this story was just so huge. I wouldn't say it wasn't as big as O.J. Simpson.
No, O.J.'s a different level. Yeah.
But this is basically the closest thing I think we'll have in this generation to O.J. Simpson.
So there's been other things that have happened. I guess O.J.'s the biggest one because he was a Hall of Fame player. And then you get in reality stuff later on, it's not reality. He actually did movies. He did, broadcasting stuff. So he was in the public eye for a long time, and then he very, very famously, allegedly killed somebody. And you have that situation. You have something like Ray Caruth, which is basically him involving, his pregnant wife at the time. So, but that, I guess you could consider more of, crimes of passion, especially with OJ. It's stuff that's just, you do it out of, you're mad and you just freak out and you have a bad, thing you do. Aaron Hernandez was something that was calculated, right? He was somebody who was legitimately a gangster. He was legitimately some Don Corleone looking kind of thing, doing all this stuff. And he basically figured out that he was a big time mob guy or, whatever you want to call him. Also really good at football. like it was both. It wasn't like he was really good at football. And, oh yeah, he also had a couple of times where he was a criminal. No, he was a legit criminal that sometimes played football. And everything about it, like, I've heard stories about him having a rough childhood, which I don't say that didn't help those things making itself happen. Like, I don't think that didn't contribute at all to it, but also he has a brother who's not the same. People are differently wired than their siblings. Like, you can have a brother who's like the total egghead going to Harvard, another brother that goes to jail. Like, those things happen all the time. The one thing that I heard someone say the other day about him, like you said, growing up in Connecticut, it was that he went to the Patriots. Right, he's from Connecticut, and then he went to Florida, and then he went back up basically home to New England. Like, what if he, instead of getting drafted by the Patriots, got drafted by the Raiders or the Cowboys or the Vikings or something like that, right? Like something that's totally away from his home, right? Like he was basically in his backyard and able to basically meet the same friends he had back in the day. Like, who knows if this is going to be the same thing or not, whether or not he was going to be that same guy again. But, after, is it hanging or it being?
He was found.
He was hanged.
He was found hanging.
I can't remember.
I guess the bed sheet was used as a noose.
No, I'm not. That's not. My question is like whether it's like you say he was hanged or hung. Like it's always like.
Oh.
It's like a specific way to say it. But he committed suicide allegedly, right? They're going to do an investigation and everything else. It's a weird thing because he is, now notorious for being basically two different people, right? Like a football player who was really good and also a murderer, like convicted murderer. Like the other one he got off, whatever, but the first one, not convicted. Like forever a convicted, killer. And he... whether or not he like actually committed suicide or whether it was something or not, like this whole thing was weird from the start because what's the highest profile outside of OJ probably in the history of the NFL? What, Michael Vick?
Yeah, Michael Vick.
Like Michael Vick might be the most like
probably this because Michael Vick was a star at the time. He was still relevant with the Falcons. So
right.
That was a big.
He was a bigger star than Hernandez was.
Yeah.
Hernandez, it was just
Hernandez had a chance to be a big star too.
He did. The problem was he played alongside Gronk, who we'll get to in a second. But yeah, like Hernandez could have been a Pro Bowler multiple times, had stuff broken right, because Gronk, as good as he is, gets injured. So it's a whole weird situation. Like, I don't even know what I really felt when I read it. I was just like, huh, okay.
I was, yesterday morning, I was kind of shocked a little bit because it was very unexpected.
Right.
I didn't expect that to happen. And then when I read the statement from Baez, Hernandez's lawyer, saying that there's nothing that would indicated anything like Hernandez committing suicide, I was like, well, okay, that's something that you have to kind of talk about too. Her Baez really thinks that it might have been an inside job, which it could be.
It could be.
But as of right now, I just have to stick to what is being reported, and that is Hernandez committing suicide. So I have to stick to that.
Sure. And the thing with like the whole thing, I don't know what happened. And, sure, I've seen like prison TV shows or whatever. And it's like, oh, they can do da-da-da. Fine.
Well, he was, and the thing to point out, he was actually at a maximum security prison as well. So there's a lot of high, security around. And I guess like there's
also a lot of bad dudes over there.
Not only that, but I guess it makes it, something I also heard as well from one of the not to say beat writers, but from ESPN writers that covered the story from the beginning, that like the prison that Hernandez was at,
right.
I guess they had criminals there that tried to commit suicide before and they were really unsuccessful and they tried to prevent suicides from happening. So that's something that a lot of people have say that maybe this is an inside job. So there's really a whole lot to talk about here. It's going to be a complex story.
Well, the thing is,
it's going to go on for about a few years. This story is not going to go away, whether Hernandez is here or not.
And the thing is, like, nobody knows. Excuse me. Nobody like understands really like how someone works, like whether what they think, whether or not they're happy, sad, or whatever. People can say like, "Oh, we just got off on the double murder charge." Cool. Also, still convicted murder. Like, you could go through all of the appeals, all the everything, and be like, oh, okay, cool, I'm free. And it's like, oh, nope, I'm right back in a prison cell. Like, who knows what people are thinking in their actual head. That's why I can't really say, like, whether or not what he did was suicide or whether it was just him getting, murdered by somebody. Like, it's hard to say. The whole thing with Aaron Hernandez is interesting, and, we make jokes about, like, this 30 for 30 that they're going to have in probably, like, 5-6 years. Is going to be insane, like, because it's maybe not OJ style, but it's going to be one of the bigger ones because you have everything from his childhood to his time in Florida with, by the way, Tim Tebow, to him with the Patriots, with Brady, Belichick, and everything else like that, and then going to prison, and then the suicide or maybe whatever they figure it out 5 years later, whatever it is. Like, that's a lot of stuff that you can kind of cram into, call it an hour and a half. Like, it's not going to be as long as the OJ one because the OJ one was like 5 years long.
That's how long it takes you to finish it.
It was so long. It was good,
it was really good. It was very well.
Super well done. I mean,
it won
an Oscar, but
it took me like 4 days to finish.
Yeah, for sure. Like,
I had to put pause a couple of times.
Right.
It's like, oh, I gotta get some food. I gotta go to the store.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this Hernandez story is never going to go away. It's something that's going to be talked about. Even, I think, in 10 years, ABC is probably going to do a special, Hernandez story 10 years later.
Yeah, when the daughter gets older and she's like, if she's like an athlete in some way, shape, or form, yeah.
Yeah, so, the thing that did happen, the only thing I can really feel terrible about is the little girl.
It's the daughter, yeah. 100%.
I feel bad for her. She's now going to be fatherless, and my heart goes out to her, man.
Yeah, she has no control in this. She's just, yeah, exactly.
And before we move on to the Patriots here, actually, we're going to take our first break in a little bit, but Hernandez was someone that had a lot of potential. He had everything going for him.
Yeah, he was a high enough draft pick, like he wasn't a first-round pick.
Oh, wait, by the way, a lot of teams actually took him off their draft board because I guess he had a questionable character.
You don't say.
At the time.
Right.
Well, we know that now, but at the time, yeah.
That is a funny thing, though. People are like, you have these draft concerns. Like, Randy Moss fell in the draft because he smoked weed, so there were character concerns. And it's like, come on now.
And like Joe Mixon, who we're going to talk about maybe.
And then that's a different thing.
A little bit
like
later.
Something like that. Then Hernandez, it's like, those character concerns are actually probably very valid.
Yeah. So it's amazing how I wouldn't say analyze, but you look at the life of Hernandez here. He grows up in a rough childhood. And, he had all the talent in the world. He had all the opportunities that a lot of people will probably never see. And it's just a big question of what if.
Right.
It's what he leaves us with is what if. What would happen if he would have never went to the Patriots, or what have happened if he would have went with a different crowd, It's just... That's all it is right now. It's what if, and this is something that we're probably going to get a lot more details for the upcoming days, months, maybe years. But, it's just a tragic story. Tragic, and it wasn't going to be goal. The ending of this story was never going to be great. It wasn't going to be good. It was always going to be a sad ending. So that's all I can say is if I can sum this up in one word, it'd be tragic.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take our first break here, and when we return, we're going to discuss the Patriots White House visit.
Yep.
And we're going to try to fit in the Raiders. It looks like that they are rumored to back out of a Marshawn Lynch trade. So we're going to discuss that when we return to Going to Meet Concepts Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to Going to Meet Concepts Football Podcast. Well, yesterday, The New England Patriots visit the White House to celebrate their Super Bowl victory over the Atlanta Falcons this past February. Our boy here, Rob Gronkowski, he...
Love him.
I know you do. He happened to make an appearance during the White House media briefing. And, if you pay attention to the news, the White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, goes to those every day. Well, Rob Gronkowski interrupted Spicy during the team's visit on Wednesday. He basically says, "Oh, do you need any help, man?" He's like, Nah, man, I got it." "Oh, okay, man, just checking." So I'm wondering to myself.
I like how he said, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Oh, we'll see how it goes."
I was wondering to myself, did Rob Gronkowski even know that Sean Spicer was even doing that?
Zero chance. Zero chance. Because here's it. I have a few questions when it comes to this, right? A few questions. Number one, because people are saying that, it was staged. Maybe it was staged, whatever, it's like that. But also, it's Gronkowski, and you totally could see him doing this. You could totally see him just, walking around the White House, kind of, opening doors. He's looking for either beers or boobs. Those are two things he's looking for in the White House. He's going to find one of them. He's going to go through all the doors until he finds them. But something hit me. How is he allowed to just roam around?
That's what the thing. Yeah, how do they allow that to do that?
I understand he's Gronkowski and some of the Secret Service people.
This is the White House,
right? But I feel like some of the Secret Service people probably just we have a 6'5" white male walking around. Should we talk to him? Should we get? And he's like, no, he's fine. Just let him roam. They don't probably care as much the fact that he's walking around because they're like, what is he actually going to do? The biggest thing that they're probably worried about is him finding some papers or whatever and putting it on Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
You probably see some picture on thing. He's just oh, this looks cool. And then all of a sudden Instagram. And then all of a sudden.
Rob Gronkowski, you find something on North Korea, boom.
Right. He 100%.
Exactly.
100%. And not even knowing what it is. He just sees some aerial shot of something like that. He's like, oh, this looks cool. And then it's a national controversy because Gronkowski basically was able to be a spy.
And then all of a sudden, Rob Gronkowski starts World War III.
Right. Exactly. No, the thing with Gronkowski, anybody who's listened to this podcast, you understand I love Rob Gronkowski. That's my boy. I will defend him to the end. You
will offend him or you will defend him?
Defend him.
Oh, I think you said offend him.
I will defend him. No, I take offense if you don't defend him. No, he basically is a 28-year-old male with a man's body and a child's brain. He's basically allowed to do whatever he wants because we don't think anything bad of him, including walking around the White House, basically just going room to room, talking to Sean Spicer. Hey, do you want any help? No, I'm good. You sure? We'll see how it goes. All right, cool, good talk. And then just shut the door, just kind of walking around. And in my brain, I'm just I don't feel like that would work the same for LeGarrette Blount. I don't think that's that's going to go the same way for him. I feel like people are going to be we need to get this man out of the room.
It won't go that way for one reason, and I won't say that reason. I think you guys know what that reason is.
Yeah, because we don't love running backs.
If it was imagine if that was Bennett. Martellus Bennett, if that was him.
Well, Bennett was one of the dudes that was just nah, we ain't going.
No, he didn't go. And the list of Patriots that did not attend.
Blount might have been one of them, too.
Yeah, Blount didn't attend. One of the list of Patriots that did not go to the White House yesterday was, Martellus Bennett, Garrett Blount, Tom Brady, after that statement he released yesterday morning. You got Tavon Branch, Hightower. Dante Hightower was not there. Devin McCourty, and you got Long. I think it's not Jake Long. It's Chris Long. I don't know why I was going to say Jake
Long's the former lineman for the Dolphins and Rams and other teams.
And then James White, I don't think he was there either.
Right.
So, you may say maybe they didn't go for one reason, but we're not going to talk about that.
Brady also didn't go for a handful of reasons. He probably didn't.
Yeah, there was a lot of reasons.
He probably didn't want the PR look because once he gets there, everyone's going to ask, hey, isn't this your boy? Talk about your boy, kind of thing like that. He didn't want to deal with that. Also, it seems like his mom is legitimately sick.
Another player that was not there was Danny Amendola, and you want to know how I know that? During President Trump's speech, to pretty much saying, it's tremendous. They had a great year. No team has been good this long. And then he talked about the fourth down conversion by Danny Amendola, I think in the second half.
Right.
He's fourth down conversion by Danny Amendola. Where's Danny at? Where's Danny? Then he looks behind him a couple times and, where's Danny? And he wasn't there. So he gave out a shout out to Amendola, even though he wasn't in attendance.
He is basically... it was a funny thing, man. He just basically was like, hey, Danny, touch Danny. And, you could see people kind of looking around he's not here. And he was at a friend's funeral, so he like legitimately was like at something that, you know, you have to go to, right? If it's your friend or whatever, like they're not going to have that like, you know, all the time. Like they don't get to have that like a week later. Like, nope, this is the day. So, yeah, that was just kind of like a nice little awkward kind of transition of just like, oh, yeah, this was great. Danny, talk to Danny. No, Danny, no, Danny. Where is Danny? Danny's not here. You know, so I do like the fact that with the Patriots, then everybody that showed up, like I get why Belichick showed up and why Brady didn't show up, because Belichick's going to look at you dead in the face and be like, don't ask me that question. To where Brady would have to like talk about it for a little bit. And even Kraft can kind of like skate around it or whatever. Brady didn't want the stuff, so I get that, but I do like the fact of this wasn't a totally like nuclear situation with the Patriots.
No pun intended.
Right, I just realized that as I said it. I'm like, oh, that's not what I meant. But
no pun intended.
Yeah, I usually do those things on purpose. That I actually didn't do on purpose.
Yeah.
That it wasn't any kind of thing. Like, we basically had jokes, right? We had a Danny Amendola joke. We had Gronkowski being Gronkowski, you know, and there was nothing said really because, like, I imagine if some other players had gone, some of them might have said something, then we all of a sudden have a conversation that kind of nobody really likes having.
We would have had a whole different show.
Yeah,
about that.
basically. But all that happened. Now moving on from somebody who didn't want to talk about stuff as far as Tom Brady goes to somebody who in the past, you know, just was here so he didn't get fined, didn't want to talk about anything. We go to Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch is currently retired from the NFL. He was with the Seattle Seahawks for a handful of years, Super Bowl champion. Basically started an earthquake, literally, in Seattle. You know, very, very great career. Had the idea earlier this year of wanting to get back in the NFL and wanting to go to the Raiders. He's still under contract with the Seahawks. Makes it a little bit difficult to do because you can't just say, oh, I want to come back, but I want to be on this team. They're like, no, we have your rights, da-da-da. Cool. Let's set up a trade. And with this being the last few years the Raiders are in Oakland, and with Marshawn Lynch being from the Bay Area, it made sense him wanting to go there. But now it's starting to look like the Raiders are starting to back out of it. They've been trying to do a deal for about a month or two now. Basically, they've been offering this and that to the Seahawks, and it looks like it's starting to fall through. Nothing's really working. Nothing's exactly sticking. And it's weird because we went from not knowing if this was true in the beginning, if the story was anywhere near true, because no, Marshawn Lynch retired. Like, if he was going to come back, he would have came back last year, right? To it getting a lot of traction, to being like, wow, this is like it's actually going to happen, to now totally 180 again, and it's like, okay, this maybe won't happen. The Raiders still need a running back, at least a number one running back. Marshawn may not have been that guy, but he could have been someone that helped out. Like, they still need help in the running game, so they better figure this out before the actual draft, right?
Which is a week away.
Exactly. It's 1 week away. And, like, if you want to take Mixon, if you want to take Cook, if you want to take McCaffrey and trade up for Fournette, whatever else, like, you better start figuring that out right now. Like, if you get Marshawn, cool. But over the next 6 days, you basically got to figure out whether or not this is going to be something you go after or if you're just going to totally abandon ship and decide we're going to go the draft route.
Yeah, and, you know, it looks like right now that Albert Breer, I can't even say his name. Breer of the Monday Morning Quarterback, he reported that the Raiders are willing to walk away from a potential deal with Marshawn Lynch because, you know, the draft's coming up and it's been reported that the draft is the deadline for a deal to come about. I've said this a couple of times, especially this week, that, you know, I can see the Raiders adding Marshawn Lynch but still draft the running back because you don't know how Marshawn Lynch is going to play in the preseason.
Yeah.
Like, even if Marshawn Lynch is on the Raiders, it's not going to rule out them drafting Mixon or someone because you don't know how Lynch is going to look. Like,
he didn't
the
have
Raiders
4 yards rushing last year.
Yeah, the Raiders are ready to win now. Like, they're just a few pieces away from actually competing in the AFC.
Right.
I still think no matter what Marshawn Lynch was going to pretty much going to the Raiders or not, they were going to draft a running back anyway.
Right.
Like I think they can get Christian McCaffrey. I think it'd be a great fit. They can do a whole lot of things in that offense, especially with Carr and Cooper and Crabtree. I like Dalvin Cook. I think he can be a really great asset to that team. I think Joe Mixon, who may be the best overall running back in the draft, may slip a few rounds because of, the video that came about this past fall. So there's a lot of ways, a lot of running backs in this class. I did list most of the running backs in this draft class yesterday. I don't have that list with me today, but there's a lot of good names. I like Jamal Williams from BYU. He's another good guy that you can get later.
Well, and all of that said, I just want Marshawn selfishly to be in the Bay. I just want him to be with the Raiders, in the Bay Area. Whether or not he's good or not, it can be a fun thing for him to be with the team, right? Because all he has to do is basically be some rah-rah sports, guy in the Bay, because we all understand how good he actually is. We understand that he, at one time, was one of the best running backs in the game, and if he can be solid in Oakland, along with kind of leading the charge of let's get one before we leave, I think that'd be really fun, and also you get the interviews with Marshawn, who's basically going to look there and be like, I don't want to talk about this, and then just kind of go off. It's going to be great.
Oh, and speaking of the Raiders, it looks like that Mark Davis approves of drafting Joe Mixon. And Joe Mixon, if you don't know who he is, if you've been living under the rock, at this point, I would just tell you to Google him because we can talk about him all day in his video. But, he's been slipping on a lot of draft boards on various teams because of his past, and there's a lot of characters concerned. We did talk about the character concern of various players earlier in this show, especially Aaron Hernandez, who had a lot of character issues, before he came into the Patriots, and, we kind of saw those character issues play out a long way. But it looks like Mark Davis, he looks like he's very interested in drafting Joe Mixon, but there's also reports that maybe he may fall out of the draft completely. So
he's not going to fall out of the draft.
He's not. He can't. He's way too talented to not be drafted.
Right.
I can see him going out, maybe slipping out of the first round, maybe second. I think third will be the lowest he'll go.
Right.
But, Joe Mixon, I think he may be the best all-around running back in this draft. He may be the best one, but a lot of people don't want to hear that because of this video punching a female and when he was a freshman at a restaurant. So
if he actually doesn't get drafted, I'm not going to say it's a blackball thing because he's still going to get taken by a team, right? But it would be the closest thing I've seen to teams basically being we're going to punish you for this, which I get in one aspect. I get you guys wanting to basically set an example for him, but it's also something that's super blatant. The only thing I've seen anywhere close to that with a totally different situation was Michael Sam. Because Michael Sam, I remember looking at mock drafts before he was drafted, before he announced that he was gay, and they had him in the third or fourth round. And then he was undrafted, and all of a sudden it was oh, okay, cool, I see what you're doing here.
He actually got drafted in the seventh
round. That's right. He was at the very end, that's right. But that's the only time I could see it was oh, okay, cool, I see how this goes. But if he doesn't get drafted, that's one of those things. It's just okay, so you're just doing this to punish him. Because it's not he's not talented. He's one of the best running backs in the draft. He may not be the best, but that doesn't mean he's not going to get drafted in the top 2 or 3 rounds.
Yeah, and it looks like that. This report comes from Josh Norris of NBC Sports. He made an appearance on Pro Football Talk and noted that there are several teams that have received permission from owners to draft Mixon, and one of them was Mark Davis. And we talked about how, hypothetically Joe Mixon on the Raiders, because they're going to move in Vegas in 2 years, and we kind of speculate that maybe that may not be the best fit for him because of his, his past, and, he's still a young kid.
Sure.
I'm not here to judge him. He may have changed, and I'm kind of hoping he has.
Yeah, 100%.
But still, you got to be kind of concerned
you do have to
with
be concerned.
having a young player there in Vegas.
Right. You do have to be concerned about that. The other thing is, as much as we love to rip a player for either valid or not valid reasons, as much as we love to get on the player and say you're a bad person, the other thing we really love a comeback story. We love a comeback story. And if he can be somebody, because the difference between him and Ray Rice isn't playing anymore. We basically went from yelling at Kobe Bryant for something that's, just about as bad, probably worse, to loving him again after he won 2 titles. If Mixon can come in, be legit apologetic, win a Super Bowl, have a really good season, then all of a sudden the narrative can flip of, man made a terrible decision, but we love him now. Because if you remember Kobe Bryant back in, 2007? Something like that, when all the Eagle Colorado stuff was happening?
I think that was 2004, 2005.
Yeah, maybe 2005, something like that.
Yeah, it was definitely in the mid-2000s.
So, like, when all that was happening, like, we were ready to crucify Kobe Bryant because, yeah, you got your 3 titles, but you did it with Shaq. Shaq's better than you, da-da-da-da. And we were ready to basically, like, hang him out to dry. And then he won 2 championships, got an MVP of the season, of the regular season, and now Kobe Bryant's Kobe Bryant. Like, this can flip for Mixon, but you have to obviously be contrite, and you have to obviously have a great year. And maybe he can get that, maybe he can't, but it'll be interesting to see how this goes.
And there's something I do want to point out that, the woman in the video that he punched, Joe Mixon, that is, Amelia Molitor, her lawyer actually tracked down another man who is named Anthony Hernandez, no relation to Aaron Hernandez. I have to throw that out there. Hernandez claimed that Mixon struck his daughter while he was in high school. So all these problems started back in high school, so maybe that's a reason why he's slipped so far in a lot of draft boards, or he's been taken off. So
sure,
it's maybe another concern for Mixon, but honestly, like you said, Anthony, if Mixon turns out to be an all-pro running back, we're going to forget about all this. Remember, with Tyreek Hill and all the issues and all the legal troubles he had before going to the Kansas City Chiefs, people forgot about it,
right?
Because he was just so electrifying last year.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I know that's not a great thing to say or do, but people are going to forget about this. I'm not going to forget about it, but people will forget this even happened to
You give
Mixon.
someone enough time, and you give them enough other chapters in the book, they're going to forget about the first chapter.
Yeah, exactly. And people have forgotten about Kobe Bryant and what that happened in Colorado. People don't even talk about it anymore.
Right.
All right. All right, we're going to take our last break here, and when we return, we're going to discuss Colin Kaepernick being listed as one of the top 100 most influential people in America, and we're also going to discuss Tampa Bay Buccaneers being featured on this year's Hard Knocks on HBO. So we're going to discuss that when we return to Guns to Me Concepts Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to Guns to Me Concepts Football Podcast. And for the final segment of the day, looks like Time Magazine unveiled their list of the top 100 most influential people in America that have various athletes like Conor McGregor, Neymar, Brazilian football star. But Colin Kaepernick, one of the most polarizing figures this year in the NFL, made the list. So to me, it's not surprising because he's very influential. I thought he was one of the most influential athletes in America. And the thing about this is that Jim Harbaugh wrote the passage on Kaepernick in Time Magazine. So yeah, man, he's named one of the top influential people in America, and it's no surprise here.
It doesn't surprise me that he's one of the most influential. I mean, whether you agree with him or not, whether you like him or not for whatever he's been doing, you can't argue that the dude's not influential. Like, you can't argue that the dude hasn't had a cause, said his piece or whatever else like that and had people follow him. Like, he's legitimately somebody who, more than most, believes in something, went for something, whether it works or not, you can't blame him at least for trying. He's totally, like, if Conor McGregor is going to be up there and all Conor McGregor's done has basically been a loudmouth in the UFC to a lot of profit, you got to put people on there who have actually had a cause, right? Somebody who's actually had a cause. Like, he's not necessarily somebody who's, I guess along the lines of someone like a Bill Russell or a, OJ, or I guess OJ wasn't that guy. Who was it? Bill Russell, Jim Brown. I'm trying to think of that photo. Muhammad Ali and Kareem. Like, he's not like something like that, but he is somebody that totally wanted to do something, right? He had thought in mind. He had a plan, and now he's in the situation where he's not on a team, so you could argue whether or not it was the right move or not. But, yeah, being on here. And the funny part is he has Jim Harbaugh basically doing the stuff for him. Harbaugh's his boy. Harbaugh loves him. Like, Harbaugh basically gave him his shot, right, because he basically told Alex Smith, okay, you can go. Put in Kaepernick. Got to the Super Bowl. Was basically a few plays away from winning the thing. Yeah, it kind of went south after that. But Harbaugh seems to defend him and love him and will be his biggest fan forever. And now, with him being one of the most influential, like, he's still not signed, like I said, to a team, and he probably won't be signed for a team for a few months, probably, or maybe he'll get signed in a week right after the draft's up. But, yeah, I don't think you can really argue that he's one of the top, most influential people of this year, last year, whenever he ended up starting the whole thing. He's been one of the most influential people over the past, basically, about a year.
Yeah, and this passage by Jim Harbaugh, who, he absolutely loves Kaepernick. That is his boy. That was the one person in the building that had his back, and he was just bounced out of that organization. And after Harbaugh left, Kaepernick was not the same guy. It really showed in his play.
Oh yeah,
it really showed in his play.
Well,
but
also to be fair, once Harbaugh left, everybody else left too.
Yeah,
so it was one of those things of once he left, Patrick Willis, who else?
Chris Borland retired after 1 year. Justin Smith.
Alden Smith had his thing. Like, everybody
Alden Smith was just an idiot that year.
But he was on the team.
Yeah, he was still on the team, but he got cut.
So all of them were either retiring or leaving or couldn't not stay away from cops. Like, a lot of stuff was happening.
Stay away from cops.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, Alden Smith couldn't stay away from the sirens. Like, he kept getting arrested for whatever reason. So, like, all this stuff was happening. Then you had a team that was, like, a Super Bowl talented team to a team that wasn't. And Colin Kaepernick wasn't the same thing because he, like most quarterbacks outside of maybe Peyton Manning and maybe Aaron Rodgers, but even that was kind of shaky 2 years ago. Like, you can't lead a team to the playoffs by yourself. And, yeah, he struggled, clearly. And now he's trying to basically get on with another team after having, 1-10 in his last 11 games, something like last year. So, yeah, like, maybe he gets signed after. Because I think maybe in a week, once the draft happens and the quarterback situation's pretty smoothed out, then I think he starts getting offers.
Yeah, I don't think he'll get offers till like June, maybe late May.
You think it's going to be that long until he gets anything?
Yeah, it's going to be a while. And the thing about Kaepernick being named on the Time Magazine's most influential people list is, Harbaugh, his passage, he writes a couple paragraphs. No one better can describe Kaepernick than Harbaugh. He kind of had his back from day one, so to speak. And Harbaugh actually reacted very negative when Kaepernick did start this protest of the national anthem, and he ended up saying he initially respected his rights, and he did not respect the motivation. But shortly after that, he ended up saying he respected the motivation, but took exception to the specific action of like not standing up during the anthem. But Harbaugh did say that Kaepernick's willingness to take a position at personal cost is not part of our American history, and that's completely true. Kaepernick is a part of our history now.
Oh, 100%.
In America, yeah.
Yeah, no, you can't talk about the 49ers probably because it's not like Colin Kaepernick was a guy that played for a year for the team. Like, it's not like he's Blaine Gabbert, right? Blaine Gabbert played for a little bit with them, wasn't good. Now he's gone. Okay. That's it. He's gone. Like, no, Kaepernick took you to a Super Bowl and was really good for you for a little bit of time. And then also had one of the biggest, national stories of the Niners, basically, outside of them making it to the Super Bowl. Like, that's the biggest story of the Niners over the past, 15, 20 years, basically since Jerry Rice and Owens weren't on the team anymore. Like, that's the most they've been relevant. Like, yeah, they went to the Super Bowl and they were good for a few years, but then also you have Kaepernick, doing that, and you'll remember it for sure because it was too big of a story to not be memorialized or talked about or whatever 5-10 years from now.
I cannot wait for the 30 for 30 of Kaepernick.
They're gonna do Kaepernick.
We have so many 30 for 30s that just from this year of events alone.
Hernandez. You have the situation with Colin Kaepernick. You have the situation with the Patriots.
Joe Mixon can possibly be one.
Joe Mixon. Like, there's a lot of things that have the potential to be really good 30 for 30.
I'm inspired to film one, man. I'm inspired.
Dude, the people, 30 for 30 are always really good. You know, like they're about an hour and a half long. They're fun. They tell you a cool story. And then, you know, you end up learning a few things. And then, you know, that's it. Outside of OJ's, which was like 6 years long. So long. So long.
6 years long. It
was
really,
so long. Man.
I remember watching the OJ one. I paused it to go to the store, right? Because I had to pick up some stuff.
Right.
And then, like, my roommate walked in. Well, no, he was somewhere in the apartment. And he was like, oh, yeah, I saw you watching the OJ thing. I saw it, and it was like 3 hours long. And I'm like, yeah, but that's only part one.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, and the thing with the OJ one was I liked it, but I heard for so long, I was like, oh, it's the best one they've ever done. Oh, it's this and that. And you can only hype things up so much before eventually you just don't.
I was actually kind of sad that it ended.
Well, like.
I was actually kind of sad. I was like, oh, what am I going to do in my life now?
It was good, but, like, it was built up too much for me. Like, it was too much. Like, if you keep telling me over and over again, oh, this is so good, this is so good, so good, eventually it's like, okay, this thing better be, like, the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's kind of the same with The Dark Knight. Like, when that came out, how everyone loved it. Oh, it's going to be so good. And I really liked it, but also the hype was so freaking giant around it.
I think The Dark Knight was the best movie of the 2000s.
Could be.
No,
also,
I think it is.
Also something like Star Wars, right? Star Wars Episode 7, right? Like, I purposely didn't read anything, didn't look at anything, didn't want to see anything before it came out because I was like, I don't care if it's good. I don't care if it's bad. I want to figure this out on my own. I did the same thing for Suicide Squad. Like, I want to know these things beforehand, and if you tell me how good something or how bad something, it's going to cloud my judgment. So with OJ, it was just like, oh, this is the best thing they did. And it is the best thing they probably ever did. They won a freaking Oscar for it. But at the same time, like, I can only hear that so many times before. I'm just like, I get it. And now I have such high expectations that, you know, it's hard to live up to that.
Yeah, and speaking of documentaries and movies, HBO, They always have Hard Knocks every summer. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be the team featured this year, and I think it's going to be very interesting. There's going to be a lot of interesting people in this series.
Have fun, Jameis.
We got Jameis Winston. We got Deshaun Jackson.
Oh, Jesus.
We may have Adrian Peterson on that team, so we don't know that yet. You never know. Maybe the Bucs draft Dalvin Cook or Joe Mixon, so they may be involved in this. So we know there's a lot of potential stars that we're going to see, and it will be the first time that the Bucs will appear in the series, which is going to its 12th season, by the way. It's going to air for the 12th time.
Yep. I didn't even think about Deshaun Jackson. Like, the thing with Jameis, he is going to be the star of the show for probably both positives and negatives. Like, he's a good rah-rah speaker as far as, like, rallying his team and everything else like that. Also, you know, Florida State and everything happened, good and bad, that happened at Florida State.
Oh, and don't forget his little speech at elementary school, too.
Right? So he's probably going to step in it during this. He's probably going to say something stupid, and people are going to get mad at him. And he's also probably going to do something that makes people, you know, oh, that makes him a leader. Look at that. Like, it's going to be both of those things. And then Deshaun Jackson, that dude, that's going to be fun. That dude's kind of insane. That's going to be an interesting thing to see. And if Peterson goes, then you're going to have that whole situation of like, hey, you know, violence against kids. Like, there's going to be a lot of stuff, so it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be something that's very interesting and entertaining, so to speak. There was 8 NFL teams in consideration for this year. One of them was the Bucs, which, you know, they were chosen. Baltimore Ravens, I don't know. I think that would have been kind of boring.
Yeah.
The Bears, there's really no interesting. The Browns, I don't know. I would have been intrigued to see the Browns,
actually.
No one
wants to see the Browns.
I would have been intrigued. They would have had. I would have. I know.
No one wants to see the Browns.
Okay, all right.
Nobody.
All right.
The Browns don't want to see the Browns. Their families don't want to see the Browns. They're like, we see them enough. It's fine. They're with the Browns.
Wow, that's harsh. All right,
They're
no chill. There's no chill whatsoever. All right, and then we got the Colts. They're also one of the teams. You know, I don't know. They're not interesting to me at all. Even Andrew Luck, he's not even. He's more of a. He's too much of a good guy to me.
He sounds like a caveman and looks like a werewolf. Does he not?
No, you're right. And then we got the Saints. They're also being considered. I actually would have thought that would have been kind of interesting. You know, they got Drew Brees. They got a lot of star power there. The Eagles, that would have been pretty good. I think it would have been pretty good. Tennessee Titans would have been a team I would have been interested to see. You know, they have Marcus Mariota, and they're also a team on the rise, just like the Bucs. But I think the Bucs were pretty much the favorite from the start. They have so many figures on this team that are entertaining, You know, they may be polarizing, but, you know, they're a team that would make for great television with cameras around them.
Right, and you're not.
This may be the real life ballers on HBO. So.
And they're not, and you don't have the situation where you're not going to have the Patriots on there. You're not going to have the Cowboys on there. So you got to have another team that'd be fun and flashy like that. Real quick, we're in a studio. We have TVs on ESPN and FS1. FS1 has a headline with Colin Kaepernick, Cowherd, basically saying, is Aaron Rodgers underachieving with the Packers? Why does he hate so hard? Like the segment before that was talking about Russell Westbrook and how he's not as good. Like, why does Colin Cowherd hate so hard? Like, why?
He hates a lot of people.
Like, why? Like, you don't have to keep saying how bad someone is.
I know he hates people in the NBA like Russell Westbrook. No matter what he does, he's going to hate him. He loves LeBron.
I mean, the only one
I don't know. He's so biased. I don't like that. Being biased towards anybody. Like, there's a lot of NFL players I don't like, but I'm not going to talk bad about him just because I hate him.
Well, the whole thing, like, he loves LeBron. There's only one person that's basically occupied that lane of not liking LeBron anymore, and that's Skip Bayless. He's the only one that's basically occupying that lane. Like, he is the only driver in that lane. Everyone else is like, no, he's pretty good. Like, it's fine. Like, he's probably one of the best of all time. Like, top 5. It's cool. To where Skip's still like, no, overrated. He's not that good. He has the clutch gene. Like, he's still going on random stuff. I don't understand.
All right. But I do want to talk about something else before we leave. You know, Vanderbilt football team, they released a pretty funny sorority parody video.
Uh-huh.
It is absolutely hilarious. It's supposed to be a fake VF sorority, and it's literally like it opens with them like kind of like in clapping hands and all that. You know, it's a shot of them going to everyone in line. It has them dancing around. I don't know what the song is. And then they one of the guys is like, hey, come into my house here. Check it out. And then there's like they have like this anchor inside one of the houses. I think it's one of the football facilities there in Vanderbilt. He's all, you know, I think this anchor, you know, it really shows about our sisterhood. You know, it's the anchors are down. and then the I think it's one of the linemen on this team. And then another guy shows up on the team. He's like, hey, this is my little. He's like, hey, I know he's a little shy, so you know, it's absolutely great. I think the YouTube video is Sam Dobbs official. That's the YouTube video where you guys can check it out. It's absolutely hilarious. I had a laugh watching this.
I'll go check it out.
Yeah, check it out. All right, well, that's going to conclude our show today. I unfortunately will not be here tomorrow. You're going to be by yourself now.
I will be by myself.
It's cool because I've been by myself for 4 days this week. No, 3 days this week, actually. So this is the only time we did the show together this week. I can't believe that.
Right.
All right. Well, don't worry, though. You know, Anthony, you should hold it down.
I got this.
All right. You have a lot to talk about, man. You got the schedule. You got the schedule.
Right.
So, you know, you definitely can break it down. I will definitely talk about the schedule on Monday.
Right.
I definitely will talk about that. All right, well, that's going to conclude it for us. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Anthony.
And you guys were tuning in to the Going to Meet Concepts Football Podcast. Thank you for listening, and you guys have a great day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.